Okay, here we go at it again. I have figured out the mystery behind this pin jamming. I don't think you're going to be able to see it back there, but it's directly behind here where the spring, the ball, and the pin come out on the other end. What has happened is it seems some complete moron has driven two pins in there, and that's why I'm having the worst problem. So my only recourse is to go ahead and drill this one out, the top one out. I'm almost there as far as how far I needed to go in before this thing will physically slide up off of the rail. So I suspect once I get a drill in there for 2 or 3 seconds, it'll disintegrate that top one, at least the edge of it, and I'll be able to finally slide that up. Now, for purposes of speeding up this video, I've already started to remove this little clip from down here. And I've also driven out this roll pin from that hole right down there. Now, just a note, when you're building these things, you want to keep track of every single little part. Like, for example, when I punched it, the pin fell in there. Now, you got to remember that there's a pin in there because I have dropped a key from the sliders into a trans before, and if you don't retrieve that, that'll jam itself in a tooth and it will completely ruin your day. It'll bend the tooth. It'll do crazy things inside that transmission. So just keep track of every single little small part. Now on this transmission, because he had the input play, these here are the magnets. You could see little bits. These are the keepers from 4th gear. They've broken off. So I got to find out that source of play. Maybe somebody was in there and forgot a shim or something. Next step here is to remove these 2 clips. If I can't do it one-handed, then I'm going to turn it off and come back to you. Sometimes these are a pain. Now there are a lot of these too. So, and some of them have varying thicknesses, and make sure you remember which ones go in which slots. I'm going to go ahead and come back after I've removed that shim. Okay, show you a couple things. Got the pin off. Okay, lighter colored one and lighter colored one, and I remember from my last build that these 2 went above the speedo sensor here, and the darker colored one went below it. Now there's another one under there. I believe that one is fatter than this one because of shaft diameter. It might have even been one below that, but like I said, keep track of them, and if they don't seem to be fitting right, don't force it. Now this is optional. A lot of people put them back on. It's just right here on top, like, you know, like so. And they put those in there from the factory just to keep the fluid from spilling out the tail shaft on the assembly line. I can tell this trans has been in before, so somebody put that back on. Now, to get this off, there's a couple different ways. You can put a bearing separator underneath it and then tap on the bearing separator with a hammer. In this case, they're not lodged on there too tightly, so I just used a punch under it and lightly punched it until it slid off. There's no up or down on these. They're same thing on both sides. Next comes that next clip, of course, and I've already started to remove it. Boy, this is a challenge holding the camera. There it is. Okay, don't let these things go flying. Now we've got another clip. Lots of them. This trans is actually a fairly complicated one, although I've done a 3650 before, and I'll tell you what, that sucked. Another good thing to do when you're doing this is to take lots and lots and lots of pictures of everything before and after you start, and notice how things come apart. For example, there's a sort of a little ring, bearing race, I don't know what you want to call that. Then you have the actual bearing, and then there's another one. So once you are putting this down, the way you want to do things is you want to put them on your tray here, kind of in the order things came off, okay? So from there, we're going to pull this next gear off. And then I'm probably going to put that right on top. Of course it would land in that ring. All right. 1 second. Sorry about the camera angle. All right. I like to keep all my magnet parts, metal parts in a magnet, so you don't lose them. Now, of course, note there's thick shim under there. Okay, now this is going to come off. Actually, the way I want to do this is I want to put that right there. Kind of put your parts down in reverse order that they come down in. This is going to have a gear. It should have a bearing race underneath it. Yep. Okay. Little trick I had when assembling these drop in, but there was another one on another gear that didn't drop in just perfectly, and the actual, you'll see it when you get to it. Actual little needle bearings were catching on the shaft, and I had to stick an old bearing race in around here to push the needle bearings out as I slid it onto the shaft. That was a major pain in the ass. Anyway, this isn't going to balance on there, so just like I said, keep them in order. Don't get your tools all over the damn workbench like I do. Okay. So you know what goes where. And then, of course, if you get lost, the pictures will help. This is reverse slider. That was reverse. Reverse still has the brass synchro. It's the only one that's brass. Everything else is now carbon fiber. Okay. So. Real exciting, right? I'll put that there. Now remember, I've already removed the clip on the top, so this should slide out. There's one more clip down there too that I'm going to have to remove. If I can do this one-handed, I will. Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay, there it is. Should slide right out now. I'll show you something about this. Well, there goes that key. Be careful. Usually I'd be doing this with two hands. I'm going to have to get a key kit. Now when this comes off, generally this is top with this little groove up there. However, this is reversible. Since it's only reverse, one side isn't used. I've pulled apart one where, actually my first one, the only other one I've done, these teeth were completely ground down because he was grinding so bad. So you can actually take and reverse this so that the new side is facing up towards reverse and you don't have to replace this. They sell bronze keys for these transmissions. This is just the reverse fork, but you can get them, I'd suggest putting them in 1, 2, 3, and 4 in there. They're only a few dollars, they're pretty cheap. So this should slide right off. So I don't have the use, unfortunately, of both of my hands. I'm running out of room in my tray. Let me put you down for just a second. Really sucked to remove. I had to mangle the hell out of it to get it out. I might have to buy a new clip kit for this. That's the fatter one I was talking about. Now back to this reverse slider. The hub part of it is one-sided. This side fits up. And note that this little retainer goes on the bottom. That holds the keys from falling down. Okay. This is pressed on. It's a bear to remove. That's what I had to create that tool for. I got the one at Harbor Freight that had the shorter arms on it. And I went to Home Depot and I measured out, well, they had these sticks in the metal section at Home Depot already cut like that. And I just measured 6 12-inch pieces, cut them, drilled a hole. There you go, it extended. So what I'm going to do is show that to you in a minute. Pull this apart next. There's another pin, I believe, down there. Well, actually, maybe not. Here, see if you can see this. What's holding this in? There's another clip. Very hard to do this with one hand. There we go. All right, let's see if I can get this done with my left hand. Beautiful. Okay, it just comes right off. Okay. This part isn't supposed to slide off like that. I believe that's supposed to be held in with a pin. That could be part of my problem right there. That is not supposed to come off. Somebody left a pin out on that. It's the pin I drove out. I believe it was that one. Okay, this should start kind of falling apart now. Yeah, see, there it is. Okay. Keys are still in there. It's had some contact on the bottom. Alright. It's normal for that to come apart. These are kind of a bear. It should slide right up. Let me put this down for a minute. Well, before you pull that off, you have to get this off. So I'll come back when it's set up for that. There it is, set up. Kind of a bear, but it works. I've already got it half removed. I'll probably get to this stuff now. Not that I'm in a hurry, but not yet. So, like so, just put the wrench on and turn. And we almost got it. I'll have to put it back on. The tool is very clumsy, but it works, whatever. Tool worked. Came off. Alright. When you're putting it back on, I use an old bearing race. That fits the diameter of that. Right. Put the bearing race on here and hit the hammer on the bearing race, and that'll tap it into place. So, So much fun, huh? Now your fork can finally come off. Remember which way it goes down. And all this fun stuff. Including a synchro. Okay. There's also a shim in there. So you want to remember where everything goes. Okay, now this went around the slider. Remember down. Okay. Although it's probably not going to stay like that, of course. So, just kind of want a rough job of how it was. Right. Like so. And then, good enough. Alright, so there it is assembled. Getting down to the meat of this. There's another shim down here. That goes under there. Now, interesting enough, the first one I pulled apart had another deal, and I wonder if that's just pushed on or not. It actually had a ring that sat down in there, and I suspect that's just jammed up in there. We'll test that later. It should pop off right here. So I don't know. Let me check it out here. Like I said, I suspected from the get-go something's missing, and I wonder if this, because there's a huge gap in play. Alright, well, I'll play with that later, unless this unit is slightly different, but they're both off of a Mustang Cobra, so that wouldn't make a ton of sense. Here is the, sure as hell, hopefully you can see that. This was what was inside the hole, okay? Spring drops into that hole, ball goes on top. I think they call it the indent plate, you know, which is not supposed to come out, but I unbolted it. Some idiot drove 2 pins into there. I finally started drilling it out. Finally just got pissed off and gave it a good whack, and apparently they overlapped each other and everything came apart. Normally when you're pulling this apart from the case, that will slide up on the rail, and you have to, as you're pulling it apart, hold your hand on the shifter unit there as it comes up. If you don't, the spring and the ball will go flying. Okay? So just hold it against the indent plate as you slide the case up, and then it'll come apart and your ball and spring will not go flying. Under here is the rest of it. Make sure you keep track and remember how this goes. This gets kind of complicated. Took me a while to figure it out on my first shot because I didn't pay attention. Okay. This actually, 2 of them. And same thing, it goes into here. This, when you're assembling it, goes between. I can't do it single-handed, but all of these ride on that flat spot when you're putting it into assembly. I'll show you on reassembly. Now I've got to pull this apart and inspect it. These will just, you know, come out like so. There's that pin I told you I had to keep an eye out for. Okay. So, just like so. Now this whole unit will lift up enough to slide the cluster out. Hold on a sec. Okay. Just like so. This is fixed. You don't replace this unless it's broken. Inspect all the teeth for excessive wear, grooving on the inside. This actually looks pretty good. Okay, and then this will just lift right out, and these will fall off too. So, no need to show you, just pull straight up and out, and these just lift away. The next step is to disassemble the shaft. This here is the 5th gear, main shaft 5th gear that is pressed on. Now you have to be very careful. The first time I did it, I chipped some teeth on it trying to remove it. Do not try using a pry bar under there. That will chip a tooth. That is why I bought that proto tool right there. So the one that I made there, the arms were too thick to fit under here, and I couldn't use it. So I'll show you when I get to that stage, because I have yet to figure that out. As long as I get this shaft disassembled, then I'm on, then I'm on the home stretch, and reassembly goes actually really quick. These transmissions aren't too bad, they're just complicated, and I apologize if I stutter or pronounce something wrong a couple times. Like I said, it's just my second one, but once you get enough experience doing transmissions, you can sort of figure things out. I also, like I said, took a billion pictures from my last build that I have that I reference, and the t56 Tremec manual can be had for free on the Tremec site that I've referenced a lot too. I was running out of storage, so I got to show you quick. It's the 4th slider. Okay, look down inside there, broke the keys off because we were having issues. I still haven't found exactly where that play is coming from. It might be a simple shimming issue, which I'm hoping. Now, when you're inspecting this, you got to inspect the dog teeth. Okay, those are those teeth right where my thumb's at, and make sure they're all pointed. When they get worn, I can show you a T5 gear that's worn. They get really bad. In fact, I'll show you out here. This is what you need to keep an eye out for. Right there. It's hard to see, but those teeth are all, they get ground down from too much fast shifting and missed shifts. So at that point, you got to replace the gear. Sometimes the gear, of course, this one's broken, will wear on the inside tooth face too, so you need to inspect that also. This trans actually, the gears all look really good. The Tremecs are pretty stout, so my last one had some wear on second gear, but all in all, it wasn't too bad.